Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Thursday now. See, I'm mixing up my days of the week at this point, Keith. I can't believe that it's the end of November, November 30th. It is a Thursday. I haven't. We've been decorated for Christmas for weeks, and I still can't wrap my brain around the fact that tomorrow is December. This is blowing me away.
Yeah, we our reminder that was we pulled into school today to drop off, and they had the midterm exams were what was like on the board at school. It was like the mid-year exams are coming up in just a couple weeks, which is crazy too. I mean, our daughter only has like 2 full weeks of school left, and then we're already in the Christmas vacation, which means the year is half over. It's just flying by.
It really is. It really is. Keith, it felt like it took forever to get to October, to get to the NBA being back, and now it's back. And man, it is just the year is flying. But the next thing you know, it's going to be Christmas, and yeah, crazy. Can't believe tomorrow's December 1st. But anyway, I guess we should talk some NBA basketball here at some point. Before we do, though, quick note here. Yesterday, I asked for people to go check out Raptors Nation, the YouTube channel for it, which is one of our sister sites. The link wasn't working for a bit, so I put a new link over there on that video. Also, I'm going to drop it in this video if you guys wouldn't mind checking that out. Toss a subscription over there. Luca does a tremendous job. We're getting that off and running, so do us a favor. Click that link. Go check out Raptors Nation and just hit that subscribe button. We're trying to bring up their subscribers. So again, would appreciate that. Let's get into our first story of the day, though, and I think this is probably the biggest one, that the Bulls are now focused on finding a Zach LaVine trade. So this isn't like, well, the Bulls are now more open to a Zach, because that's where we were before. The Bulls are more open to a Zach LaVine trade than they ever were. Now it's the Bulls are focused on finding a Zach LaVine. That means to me, this is going to happen. They're planning on moving him. Like they're going to. It's not going to happen tomorrow, I don't think. Probably going to be closer to the trade deadline. Maybe it happens sometime in January or something like that. But the Bulls seem like that's their plan moving forward, is let's move Zach LaVine and then see what we've got.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed as well with this. This was reporting from Casey Johnson. He's covered the Bulls forever. He works now for NBC Sports Chicago. And one of the things he said was when teams are calling Arturas Karnisovich, the Bulls executive who runs the front office, about other players, they've been getting the answer of, we're focused on a LaVine trade right now. We want to see what the roster looks like after we do a LaVine deal. So that tells me, yeah, then they're looking at a LaVine trade. Again, we're going to sound like, beating the dead horse here, because a little bit we are. There's not going to be a LaVine trade probably for at least about another 2 weeks. When we get to December 15th, when the vast majority of the league can be traded, we may then see things start to get moving on a LaVine trade. Generally, though, it's more towards the end of the month. Sometimes into the beginning part of January. It's not like December 15th is, gonna be deals flying left and right. It doesn't really work that way. And certain teams, as we talked about, if the Lakers wanted to get involved, that's probably closer to January 15th, because they'd be trading guys who have a trade restriction until then, because those are players that they re-sign themselves. So we'll do another day when things are much slower and we have more time. We'll explain what the difference is between the two dates and why they exist that way. But just know for now, it opens up about 89-90% of the league can be traded on December 15th. So that's probably when we would be looking at a potential LaVine trade, at least starting to make a lot more sense for Chicago.
Yeah, and I think this is the right decision for the Bulls, depending, of course, on what the return would be. I think this is the right decision for them, and I don't know that this should be the end for them either. I think if they're going to move Zach LaVine, okay, you can let the dust settle and see what happens after you move him, but then you got to start looking at DeMar DeRozan, you got to start looking at Alex Caruso, Nikola Vucevic. Those guys are all going to have interest around the NBA. We can talk Patrick Williams. Is he part of the future or not? But this, I think, is the direction Bulls fans have largely been wanting to see, that, hey, this isn't it. This team isn't going to go where you want it to go. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's make some moves, get some assets for the future, and move on. In terms of LaVine, though, Aside from the teams that we've heard, because we've heard he's interested in the Lakers, we've heard he's interested in the Heat. There was one other. Who was the other one?
It was Lakers, Heat, and 76ers.
Sixers, that's right. Okay. And we've also heard pushback from all of those places, I think, at this point, that, well, they're not really that focused on a Zach LaVine trade. We've seen, though, in the past where, like, Donovan Mitchell's going to New York. Oh, no, wait, he's going to Cleveland, right? Damian Lillard's going to Miami. Oh, no, wait, he's going to the Bucks. Who's the oh, no, wait team in this scenario that comes in, that's not one of the main teams we're talking about, that gets Zach LaVine, and you go, oh, that kind of makes sense?
I think if we go off what Las Vegas is telling us, it's the Indiana Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
They have them much higher than we would ever think of them being in the potential LaVine rankings, and I think that one makes sense from a couple different standpoints. One, they have the ability to go get them. They're sitting on about 9.7 million in cap space. That's already huge, right? Because that's roughly 1/4 of LaVine's contract can be eaten up by cap space. They have Buddy Hield, who's almost $20 million. Now you're talking one or two more guys need to be in a deal, and you're already there. You've matched salary on it. And we know Buddy Hield's that one's a little weird because we kind of heard, hey, they're going to work on a trade, and then it just went complete silence.
Yeah.
We didn't hear anything since then, and that's been now what that was, well over a month ago at this point. So we'll see what comes of that, but they could get there. The other piece is they are not a free agent destination. They cannot just go out and just sign a guy like a Zach LaVine. It's not going to happen for them. So how do they do it? They either trade for him or they develop those guys themselves. So if you can get in on a guy like Zach LaVine, it would make a lot of sense. So I could see that potentially being that team that kind of comes out of nowhere and everybody's like, whoa, what happened here? So we'll see, where that all kind of comes into play and comes together. But I think there's a chance, we could see the Pacers. And what do we always say? Vegas knows something, right? Because that's the Pacers on a public team. So you're not throwing the Pacers in there just because. Like if all of a sudden the Knicks were very high odds, it'd be like, well, yeah, because they're trying to get people to vote or not vote, but bet on the Knicks. The people aren't doing that for the Pacers. So if they're that high, that tells me maybe they've got a little insider information on something could be going down there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine the Pacers over the last month or so have probably been, and you said things have been quiet on the Buddy Hield trade front. It's because the Pacers have been so busy wildly celebrating the fact that their offense is actually really, really good, and they've got a fun team, right? That's not necessarily what we expected coming into the season, but the Pacers have been a lot of fun, and they're in a position where you got to wonder, hey, if we make a little push here, what could we do? Could we make some noise if we wind up being the team to go get Zach LaVine? It's the unexpected thing. It's the fantasy team that grabbed Puka Nacua as a flyer and suddenly, hey, I've got a really good guy here, and now I can really make a run that you weren't expecting. Maybe that's what the situation the Pacers are in. Let me throw one other team at you, Keith. What about your Orlando Magic? What about
Orlando Magic?
Well, I mean, you know what I mean, like your hometown or Orlando Magic. So what? And I say your because you are close to that team.
Sure.
The Magic been one of the surprising defenses of the NBA. So currently ranked 3rd in defensive rating. They've got movable salaries. Their offense hasn't been bad. They're ranked 13th in offensive ranking, but could they potentially be in a category too where they say, you know what, we're actually a little bit better than we expected to be this season. Maybe we make a win now move when we were initially thinking it was going to be another year before we're ready for that.
Yeah, I get it. I get the logic behind it, and I get asked this regularly anytime this subject comes up. It's like, why not Orlando for Zach LaVine? I just don't know that it's the right player at the exact right time for them. They've been extremely patient. They have no desire to really let's ram this thing through and try to get into the playoffs right now. And I think if you're going to make a move like that for Zach LaVine, you have to be certain it is the absolute right guy to make the trade for, because otherwise you've given up some tradable salary, probably going to have to give up a pick in a trade like that because they're not going to send out one of the marquee young guys. So then it becomes, all right, you made that move, and if it doesn't work, all of a sudden you're sitting there saying, man, now we're a little stuck, right? This was not the exact move we really wanted. So I think it's just going to be a little, tough for them to pull off a trade like this because I just don't think he's the right guy yet for them to do this. I think they could do a big trade. I just don't know that it's for Zach LaVine.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a team that you could argue makes some sense, but I do think you're right when we talk about their MO and kind of how the Magic have proceeded. They will probably be a little bit more cautious. But I think it's a fair question for any team trading for Zach LaVine, right? Is he the guy? Is this the guy that takes us to the next level? Because if not, well, that could certainly limit the trade market. Speaking of which, just to put a bow on this, what do you think the trade market is for Zach LaVine? Like, are you picturing a bidding war here, or what should Bulls fans expect?
I think a semi bidding war makes sense. It's not going to be like, hey, Donovan Mitchell's on the market and everybody pony up. The Bulls are not going to get a return that is, monster package of good young players and a whole bunch of draft picks. So just because we're on the Bulls topic, I wrote about breaking up the Bulls for Spot Track today. The article is up. You can find it on my Twitter X timeline or on direct on Spot Track. It's the lead article on the site. And the trade I pitched was actually a 3-team trade where he would go to Indiana. Indiana would send Benedict Mathurin and some other young guys to the Bulls, and then the 76ers would get Buddy Hield in a trade, and both the Pacers and the Sixers would also send a first-round pick. Pacers one of their own picks, and then the Sixers probably one of those Clippers picks that they got was the thought process I had behind it. And that to me seems like the kind of return you're looking for, an interesting young player, a little bit of matching salary, and then probably a pick or two. You're not going to get the 4 first-round picks and swaps and, 3 good young guys. It's just not going to happen. Teams aren't going to make deals like that right now. So it's probably something along those lines.
If you're looking at the Donovan Mitchell trade, if you're looking at the Rudy Gobert trade, Bulls fans, you're probably going to be disappointed. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that haul for Zach LaVine. That said, he's a good player, and I do think there's going to be. I do think multiple teams being interested is a likely outcome here. I just can't say the price is going to get crazy high because, again, like we said, 4 years under contract. Again, it didn't seem to deflate Gobert's value, but it takes one team, right, to just fall in love with a player. I don't know that one team is just going to fall in love with Zach LaVine. I think the Wolves situation was kind of an outlier. So yeah, Zach LaVine, I think the market will be there, but it's not going to be like teams are going to be climbing over each other to go get him.
Yeah, that said, let's see. I mean, we still are 2 months out from the trade deadline. It may serve Chicago a little bit. Let's see if, unfortunately, somebody has an injury and then it's, hey, we're a contender. Let's try to make, something like this happen and go get him, and may make this a guy our run. The big thing is you're taking on, some of his contracts already been paid out this year, obviously, but 4 years and $178 million. After this year, 3 years, $138 million. That's what you're bringing in there, and probably slightly more because they'll get a little bit of a bump with his trade kicker that comes in because that'll take him up to max salaries. But it's we'll see. This is definitely going to be something we'll be monitoring here for the next little bit with Zach LaVine.
It's one of those things where you got to remember too, like GMs, they have to go to the team's owner and say, "Hey, I need $180 million for Zach LaVine," and the question is going to be, does he put us over the top? Right? It's not the situation too where you could say, okay, but I'm gonna keep the profit when I flip him next year, like Ricardo Rincon. It's not going to be like that. So that's real money. I know we look at it in cap math and everything, but that's real money that you have to put out for Zach LaVine, and so that's a factor in all of this too.
And it could be more, right? Because if you're to become a tax team, then you get the tax penalties on top, and then it's years after that, and then you're talking about a guy. I think he gets a little bit of an unfair rap, and I'm guilty of this too, of saying he's had knee problems, all this, because he hasn't really missed all that much time. Since the initial knee injury that he had. He's really been fairly durable, but there's always kind of something, just little underlying problem there. And as he gets older, those little problems tend to become a little bit bigger problems. And it's all like guys miss less time as they age. In general, it generally tends to be more. So that's going to be another concern is, hey, wait a minute, I've got $45 million of a player here and he's played
Mm-hmm.
in 60 games. What are we
Yeah.
doing with this? And 60 games might actually be on the high side in highlight. So that's going to be another question. There's just a lot of things you have to answer. Is one, is he the right fit? Where do we feel about health wise, and can we afford this? Can we afford this contract through the next 3-4 seasons?
All right, we've got another trade topic that I want to get into here. Gordon Hayward drawing interest from multiple teams. Before we do, just a quick disclaimer. I'm starting to see out there, Keith, I'm starting to see the Team X would like however many first round picks in exchange for this
Yes.
player. Keep in mind, this is, if we want to just rewind to last year we went through this whole thing already. So people see what they want. How many first round picks for that guy? It's this time of year. Nobody's serious about trade discussions right now. Everybody's asking for the moon, and they get more realistic the closer we get to the February trade deadline. It's February 8th. This is totally normal for this time of year. Don't overreact to it. And also keep in mind that not all first round picks are created equal. Your team may say, I want 3 future first round picks, but if a team comes along and says, yeah, but I'll give you a real first that looks like it could be a lottery pick, that probably carries more weight than 3 firsts that are top 20 protected or whatever it is. So we got to keep that in mind too. Not all first round picks are created equal, and teams ask for the moon right now. Don't overreact when it comes out that Team X wants 3 first round picks for a guy that you think is just a rotation player. They can ask for whatever they want. Doesn't mean that's what they're going to get come February.
Yeah, 2 things either happen. Either they get serious and they come down, or like we saw with Leon Bogdanovich, you don't trade him, right? He ends up staying there because they never came off their ask of reportedly 2 firsts for Bogdanovich. And we're going to have a little good news story on him here in a little bit. But yeah, it's that's what happens is you end up in these spots where it's teams ask, but it's the art of negotiation, right? Is you start out high because you can always come down. You never want to come in and be like, Gordon Hayward, all right, give us a second. And then you find out another team's like, man, we would have given you a first. And then it's like,
right.
We kind of blew that a little bit. So yeah, that said, Gordon Hayward, okay, right? If you're getting in the Gordon Hayward business at this point in his career, you're going to get a pretty efficient guy, especially if he's like your 3rd, 4th, 5th guy on your team. Can still shoot, can still pass. He's still a fairly solid defender. Your problem is he's going to get hurt. He's going to miss time. He's not going to be on the floor for you. Let's say he gets traded around the trade deadline with what's that? Usually about 30-ish games left in the season, 25, 30 games. He's probably going to miss some of that time. Unfortunately, as Celtics fans know, gets hurt sometimes in the postseason too. So it really comes down to, one, can you afford the contract? I believe, let me make sure I have this right, $31.5 million. So there's your first big
chunk. Yeah. But just 1 year remaining, right?
Just the final year. Yep.
So that helps.
You might be able to get into it that way. And here's what's important in this new world, right? If you're one of these apron teams, you're not going to be able to say, the Hornets will just buy him out. We'll get him then. You won't be able to, because he makes more than the non-taxpayer mid-level. He won't be eligible to go to any of the tax apron teams. He will only be able to go to non-tax apron teams. So that becomes a challenge here. If you want him, you're kind of going to have to go get him via trade. And that also has benefits because then you get his bird rights and everything else, and you re-sign him. It's not that you don't need his bird rights to be able to give him 35 million,
40 million or something, right?
But you want his bird rights to be able to give him 12, 15 million if it works out. That's still better than what you would give him otherwise if you're a team that can go get him. So my guess is Charlotte maybe finds a trade for him. 31.5 is right on the tipping point of being a little hard to match salary on. They should be trying to find a trade because they should be opening up minutes for Brandon Miller any way they can to get him on the floor more and more and more, especially when the roster is healthy. But we'll see.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I'm not expecting them to get a lot back, but if you're the Hornets, you should be trying to get any kind of future asset back, anything that you can, because otherwise Gordon Hayward's going to go somewhere else in the summer. You're not going anywhere this season. Get what you can for him. Do what you
I
can.
almost, if I'm the Hornets, the way I plus up my return, give me some bad salary
Yeah,
too. You know,
not a bad
if you
idea.
want to give me a a player like it doesn't necessarily make sense for them because of Hayward wouldn't make sense for the Bulls in the position they're in. But if it was like, all right, we'll take Lonzo's contract, but you also got to
Yeah,
give us Patrick Williams. Okay, that's now we get Patrick Williams who we can take a look at. Maybe we like him, and we'll eat Lonzo's contract, and that's how you plus up your return.
yeah.
That's an option out there. Though in those deals, again, those will become more available as we get down the line with this stuff.
All right, let's get to let's get to a couple of positive stories here that we've got. Not necessarily trade related here, but first one, injury update here. Trey Murphy and Bogdanovich are on the cusp of returning.
The other one.
Bojan. Oh, I put in the wrong
Yep,
Bogdanovich.
right. It's been a day.
Oh man. Yeah, it has been a day. It has been a day. I went to the wrong Bogdanovich. You know what happened is last night on Lakers Nation, somebody was asking me a question about Bogdanovich and would he be an interesting trade target and all that. So I was digging through Bogdanovich stats and everything. Yeah. So I flipped the two guys. Bojan Bogdanovich is the guy who's returning. The Pistons, they need all the help they can get. They need all the help they can get. Yep. And if they can get him back, that obviously does help. But is this, and we'll get to Trey Murphy in just a moment here for the Pelicans, but is this the year that Bogdan, assuming he comes back and he's healthy, is this the year he gets moved?
Should be. I mean, again, he's not helping them enough to matter for the Pistons. It doesn't make sense to have him on the roster beyond the fact of just getting anybody who can shoot out there with Cade Cunningham would be helpful. But I think, that ship has sailed now. It's move him and go. But my thing with the Pistons is, and I went on a little, it was only a 2-tweet, but a little mini rant on Twitter last night. Like, I'm just beyond frustrated with the whole Pistons experience now because they stink. Yeah. They are terrible. And I don't know about you, and I'm not trying to knock your guys down. I didn't feel like the Lakers even played all that well in that game, and they just destroyed them because Detroit's awful. Like, they are so bad on both ends of the floor, and they're bad without any real hope and purpose. Like, the Spurs are bad. They've lost, I think it's 12 in a row, but at least it's, all right, we're trying the Sohan thing at point guard. We're giving Wembanyama all these reps.
Is this a total aside, but is that a secret tank move, the Sohan thing at point guard?
I don't think so, because you don't generally start tanking day one of the season, right? And there's no once in a lifetime prospect. If this was a year ago, sure, right? Because you're trying to get Wembanyama. That guy doesn't exist. I mean, Isaiah Collier, ESPN. We're not going to get into it too much because it's way too early for our show. But ESPN just put him at the top of their draft board in the most recent mock draft, and he's a great player. But he's not like, no one is like, oh my God, we have to get this guy. And there's nobody else in the draft that you're there. So I think for San Antonio, it's more of a recognition of, hey, we're going to be bad anyway, so let's try some stuff, which is fine. That's what you should be doing if you're a bad team. Like Washington, for example, continues to give way too many minutes, in my opinion, to guys who are not going to be part of whenever the Wizards are good again. Like it's time to start. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the year. It's time to start looking in a different direction. Detroit, on the other hand, it's just a mess. Their lineup constructions are terrible. Monty Williams looks like he doesn't want to be there. Like, I don't, and to some extent,
he got a big contract to be there.
Yeah. But he even said in his introductory press conference, like, yeah, at some point the offer was too good to pass up. Like, that's not great, right? No. He's not known as a talent developer. He's known as a guy who comes in with veteran teams. So just mini rant. I'm tired of it with the Pistons. They stink, and they're bad without purpose. I have no interest in really watching the team anymore because you're not learning anything valuable about any of these players or anything. So maybe Bogdanovich helps them, but yes, trade him 100%. Get him out of there. He can definitely help a team because this guy can still score and shoot, and we know that's a skill that has increased value once you get into the postseason.
I think Monty Williams was planning on taking the year off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was, correct me if I'm wrong, but he had at least 1 year left on his son's contract. He would have still been paid out by the Suns.
Yep.
And the Pistons offer was just eventually became too good to pass up, like you said. I don't think it was, oh my gosh, I have to get right back into a head coaching job and it needs to be Detroit because I believe this is the place where I build a future champion. I don't think that was necessarily the thought process for Monty Williams. I think this was I can't pass up that many zeros on this contract.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm not blaming him at all.
No.
Like,
You
hey,
get that
good
kind
for
of money
you. If
thrown
you
at you,
can get it,
take
go
it.
get it, right?
Yeah.
It's just frustrating watching that team because it's, again, bad teams that are bad with purpose. That's fine. Like Portland is a bad team, but they're playing a bunch of young guys. They're figuring out some of what they've got. San Antonio, I already mentioned. That's okay. It's just when you're just bad and it doesn't look like you have any real direction or franchise continuity. That's a huge mess, and that part is hard to get behind. Positive though, Trey Murphy coming back. Pelicans getting healthy, getting their guys back in the fold, starting to look pretty good. They're playing okay right now. I think they are, what are they? They're 10-9, so not setting the world on fire or anything, but they're in the mix in the West, and they're knock on wood, getting healthier and have kept some of their guys healthy. Jose Alvarado went down in their most recent game, so we'll see if he goes back on the shelf. Looked like his ankle maybe again, but CJ McCollum's back. They got Najee Marshall back. Now you're going to get Trey Murphy back. That's big, and that team needs another shooter, and another shooter with size is going to be helpful. So now I'm curious to see how does lineup start to work, because you got Zion, you got Ingram, you have Murphy, you have Herb Jones. That's 4 guys that ideally would probably start, and it's a little hard to start all 4 of them because you're going to have McCollum in there, and none of them are 5, so you're probably going to have Valanciunas in there. So Murphy probably, I'm guessing, comes off the bench out of that group, at least initially, and then maybe he overtakes Herb Jones, but Herb Jones is by far and away their best defender, so that gets a little tricky too. It feels like that one probably resolves itself through a trade. Not necessarily this year, but down the line.
All right, I'm going to do the negative story here so we can finish with a positive.
Yeah.
The Warriors lose Chris Paul and Gary Payton II. Now, Chris Paul, just a contusion, not lose long term here, but he's going to miss some time. Gary Payton II, though, torn calf.
Yeah.
That oh my gosh, that sounds awful. He's going to be gone a while for them. So this is a tough blow for a Warriors team where Gary Payton II was doing some things for them, and they haven't been quite living up to expectations this season as a team. So now, and they lost Draymond for a 5-game stretch there due to suspension. Now they're going to be without 2 of their important backcourt players here for at least the near future.
Yeah, sorry, I'm laughing because the dog is hiding under my desk because he doesn't want to go into his crate, and they need to be locked up because we're leaving the house for a few hours to go to our daughter's soccer game. So he is he's got himself wedged in there pretty good underneath my desk right now. So we'll take care of that after the show.
Here's breaking confirmation here, and that I'm glad your dogs are already preparing for your departure. But Woj just tweeted out Trey Murphy is indeed planning to make his season debut against the Spurs on Friday.
Yeah, we love that. As for the Warriors, Gary Payton II, massive loss. He's their best backcourt defender, especially Klay Thompson's just not that guy anymore. He's actually now better defending 3s and 4s than he's probably never going to be a guy. Remember back in their peak run, he took on the point guards, right? He was the one covering the point guards, and Steph kind of would go out and hide a little bit. So that's a little bit of the challenge there. Chris Paul, it sounds like there's some nerve irritation too. So this could be something that kind of comes and goes with him, and we'll see. So big losses for the Warriors in their backcourt for sure.
Yeah. Not good. And the injury bug continues to ravage the NBA.
And they are right now. They're outside of the play-in tournament. They're 8-10. So they're actually, surprisingly, as much as we've all heaped lots of criticism on the LA Clippers, the Clippers are a half game ahead of the Warriors right now in the standings.
So you're saying we need to be more critical of the Warriors?
Yeah, I guess. It must be what works.
All right, let's finish with this great news. Bronny James cleared to play. And this is not. I mean, we can get into the NBA ramifications and does LeBron go wherever he gets drafted and all this kind of stuff. It's just after what he went through, suffering a cardiac arrest, it's fantastic to hear about a young man who now has the opportunity to go and resume doing what he loves and get back to playing basketball, because all of that was very much in question. I mean, whether or not he was going to survive was in question. When that first happens, your initial fear is, oh my gosh, is he going to make it? And now here we are at the point that he's able to get back on the basketball court. I mean, just an absolutely fantastic bit of news.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is he gonna make it, as you said, because sometimes these stories end up very tragic.
Yes.
But also, like, if you go back to when we were his age, that's it. You would have been done. You would not have played again
Yeah.
because it would not have had ways to trust that you could play and be safe and all those things there. So that is something that is just incredible how far this has come in 20-ish years of time of now he's going to play again and they'll be able to monitor everything, and I'm sure they'll have him all wired up with whatever they need through practices and games to make sure they're checking all of his vitals and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff is okay. But yeah, just really just a great story. I mean, we'll get into the NBA stuff another day
Yeah.
because quite frankly, right now, let's just celebrate that he's cleared to play and he'll be on the court eventually with
For
USC,
USC.
which is pretty cool. And USC, like I said, ESPN released that updated mock draft. Isaiah Collier, the point guard for USC, he's the top player. So him and Bronny James were supposed to be a big part of that backcourt. So looks like we'll finally get to see them play together.
Yeah, that could be very exciting for the college season. All right. Well, let's wrap things up there. I know we both have other stuff to run off to, but thank
That
you everybody
day.
for watching. It is one of those days. Thank you everybody for watching and listening, though. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't forget to check us out over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.